Welcome to this video where I'm going to continue giving you some information visually to help you with the Tutorial 5 CSS styling of this particular web page. Again, I want to make a point of emphasis. I'm not doing the entire exercise for you so that students become spectators, but I'm just showing you some features that may be trouble areas for individual people. I'm fast forwarding from the previous video where I started the front end of the chapter, and I'm now looking at the second part of the chapter beginning on page EW228, and this deals with something called class selectors and external style sheets. Basically, you can take an element in the HTML programming language, such as the H1 or the H2 that we did earlier, and you can create a little style with it. You basically choose new style, as we did before, pick the particular element, whether it's a paragraph or a header or a link or what have you, excuse me, and make the changes or the enhancements that you want to, and then it will apply to every element on that page that's associated with that tag or that particular element name. You can also create your own spin on a style. For example, let's say you have the letter P for the record stands for paragraph, and the code H1 stands for header 1, which is the largest size header in the language. Let's say that you only want certain headings to have a particular characteristic unique to them. You can maybe name one called H1.special or H1.blue, something like that. You may have a paragraph indicated by the letter P, and you may just want the introductory paragraph to have a special style to it, or you may want one called P.double, where you may want that paragraph to be double spaced instead of single spaced. You can even create your own name for a style by using either a dot, the period, or a pound symbol in front of it, and I wanted to show you just an example of all three of these. The only difference in these applications and the ones that were addressed at the first part of the tutorial, the first part of this previous video, was just to an element that already exists in the language, such as H1 or H2. So I'll look with you for right now at page 229 just to get you started on one of the examples, and we'll look at the example on page 229 called the P.intro class selector. We're going to apply this just to the introductory paragraph. You could actually apply it anywhere. So when we open up the file, I'll go ahead and go to the very beginning of the Gasden.html page, and if you don't have this pulled up, you may want to in case the video makes it difficult for you to see with this font size. I'm going to click anywhere in this paragraph called "This is the Week." All of you wait for each here. So the opening paragraph of the web page. And to select the entire paragraph, I click on the tag that goes with it. Unlike Word, where you just drag across it, you want to select that tag. So I'll click on the P for that paragraph, and I'll go in, just as I had before, I'll go over here to this panel on the bottom right and click the word New Style. And I can go down, and I have the choice of either clicking the letter P right here. The directions don't say this specifically, but I could click the P alphabetically and just tack onto that, or I could do what the book said to do and delete the period in front of it. That period is a big deal. So I'm going to actually type here P.intro. As long as you've got P.intro there, as mentioned in step 8 of page 229, you have this going. Now, there's a little catch here. You want to apply this new style to the document selection. You want this to apply to this particular document as opposed to maybe a whole series of pages. So be sure that check mark is indicated also, because I'm giving a very special definition to a particular paragraph. And then I make the choices in the lower half of page 229. I can go into block, excuse me, and this is self-explanatory in the book. Choose line height. Now you can actually choose one of these items right here, normal, inherit, or value, or you can actually type in the 2M. That basically is just whether you, basically an M is just an old printing, the old print shop before computers term referring to the size of a line item. Basically, you're saying when it's 2M, you're basically saying I want this to be double the height or double the size or double the spacing that normally you see in the paragraph. So you'll notice a considerable difference in the spacing here. I'm going to click the background category. And you'll notice, if you can see this on your screen, that once I've chosen something in one of the categories, in this case block, that it will have some boldness on there. The word block being bold means that I made a selection in the block category, whereas font, which is unbolded, has no selection made. So I'll click background as it says to do, and I'll click background color. The background color they're asking you to do, you can go in and you can choose one of these colors, or you can go to the option in step 5 at the bottom of that page that says more colors to have a specific shade of a color. And if you click on any one of these hexagon shapes inside the big hexagon, it will give you a particular shade or hue of a color, and you'll see a hexadecimal code over here where it says value. And you want to make sure it says FFFF99 to get the appropriate yellow color. And it will give you that particular shade once you've selected it. So I'll click OK for that color selection, and it will be indicated both in my background color and also in this little preview at the bottom of the screen, as well as the code at the bottom where it says description, the actual code that goes behind the scenes. If I click away from background, just for the record, notice that block and background are both bolded in the category box. So that means something has been selected there. Now I'm going to click OK to get out of this dialog box for the new style. And let's see if there's a little bit of delay here. Here we go. And notice the change in my paragraph. This only happened to this particular paragraph. Now I could apply this style to other paragraphs, but this is just an isolated case where all my other paragraphs are just the regular P code. This one is P.intro. And if I were to actually look at the code by splitting my screen, you'll see something in the code, line 35 in my case, that says P class equals intro. So it's saying apply that particular feature to that one paragraph. If I look up at the very top, I believe it will be here, there is a definition for P.intro that's in my embedded code at the very top of the document that would apply to any intro feature that was in my document. Now you want to be careful about this stuff. There may be some things in expression 3, the version that the book's associated with, and expression 4, the version we're using in class and on this video. There may be some discrepancies here. So if you see something that is bothering you, especially if you're one of those exact words type students, just let me know about it, and I can tell you the differences. I can even send you a message or an announcement where there are some differences between versions 3 and 4 that might make this less aggravating for those of you who are very literal learners. Now I'm fast forwarding away from this. I'm not going through the entire assignment as I mentioned before, and I want to do not a modification or a spin on a class that I did just now with P.intro, but I want to do one that is a completely new definition, creating my own name right here. And there's one on page 232 that is called a border style. Now again, this is not a word. If I were to go into new style, you will not see the word border listed in this vocabulary list for the HTML language. But we can invent our own name. I could even have a style called Mike Sisk if I wanted to. It's totally up to the programmer. We typically want to have something descriptive of the page. It might be a footer or a header. That's a very descriptive term in our lingo. You may have one called intro, differently from P.intro. Or in this case, we can have one called border. Now, when you read this on page 232, read it carefully. It says to create the dot or period border style. That period is a big deal. We're making a brand new style associated with this. Now, I'm going to go to the second paragraph. Excuse me. And when I click on this, I'm going to go back to my design mode. And when I click on this, I'll see the P tag. I'm going to select that paragraph. And I'm going to choose New Style. Now this time, instead of associating with the paragraph, I'm making an independent style on its own. You want to type in the word border, but you want to be sure that the period is in front of it. That is a major, 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 big deal. In step 4, it says, do not delete the period and type the word border. So it will say period border. And click the checkbox that says apply new style to document selection. And then everything's the same as it was. Now just because the name is border doesn't mean you have to pick the word border in the category list. I could pick block, I could pick font. It's totally up to you. But I'm going to click the word border here. And for some of you, these will be some new kinds of dialog box selections. For the border color, let me just follow the directions that are in here. On the bottom of page 232, I click the word border in step 1. Border style, I'm clicking the arrow right where it says top, and I'm choosing the word inset. Now notice what happened here. All 4 items, the top, the right, the bottom, and the left border, are all by default automatically selected as inset. If I had clicked this checkbox that said same for all and took the check off, I could change these individually. It's just a little shortcut if we need it. For border width, again, if I take off the checkbox, I have to choose them individually. Where if I have same for all checked, I can pick one drop-down arrow for the border width, choose medium for the thickness of it, and it will choose all of them. Let me click that little checkbox. There it is. For the border color, they're asking for yellow, and again, because of the same for all being checked, it does it for everything. I'll click box, and again, what happens? The word border, because I've chosen something in the border category, it's bolded. I go to box. I think you get the idea already. I'm going to choose the padding. Think of a padded cell to kind of get an idea of what the word padding means. If I were in class with you, I would tell you this in more detail. I'll click on top, click the arrow right there, and even though it says PX for pixels, I can type 1M and don't space between the words, and you'll be okay there. And I'll click the OK button. And you see this time, instead of it being blue, you will see that the word border has a green circle. That's an indicator. The blue indicates I'm enhancing or defining a style for an element that already exists in the HTML programming language for web pages. The green basically is indicative, and I'm waiting to get a reference for you so I can give you a page number. The green is indicative of what we call a class-based style, which means there's a period in front of the name. We'll look at an ID in just a second that will have a red color for it. Now, they'll all have different definitions. Again, I can apply this border anywhere. Notice the border around the paragraph. And if I look at the code behind the scenes, once again, I will see P class equals border. Just another way to define it. The same thing happens on page 234 when you're looking at the ID selector. And I'm just giving you basics for this because I'm not going into details with this video. I'll let you do the reading and work on this on your own. And if you have any specifically detailed questions, I'll be glad to help you out. For this one, if I'm going to create an ID, and we're going to do this for the footer, I'm going to go down to the bottom of the page. Hopefully you all know what footers are from maybe using computers before, possibly Microsoft Word as an example. And if I go to the very bottom and get the footer right there, I'm going to select the footer text. The footer text is the part that has the Gasden flooring, address, and city state, 23 Hill Drive, Gasden, Wisconsin. And I'm just going to click anywhere in there, select the paragraph tool, and this time the same idea applies. You click New Style, and instead of having the period there this time, we're going to have the little pound symbol. It's the shift of the number 3 and typing the word footer. The difference between this particular kind of selector with the pound symbol and the one with the one with the period can be used multiple times throughout a document. With this particular type of selector, called an ID selector with the pound symbol, you can only use it once on a page, nowhere else. And you wouldn't want to use a footer style anywhere else because it wouldn't be a footer any longer. And you do the very same thing. You click the checkbox that says Apply Style to New Document, and you pick what you want to be enhanced. And that's basically how you do the ID, the very same way as we did the other two. So I'll go ahead and cancel that in the interest of time with this video. If you made a mistake on one of these styles, all you have to do is right-click it and choose Modify Style, and you can make the changes as necessary if you need to. If you wanted to remove one of those styles completely, you simply right-click it like I do with this Auto Style 1. You can right-click it and choose Delete, and that style, once you confirm it, will go away. The last thing I wanted to mention to you, even though we have all these styles right here, we can also do something else. These are called embedded styles because they affect the whole page, all the H2 tags, all the borders or whatever. But you can also do something else with this page, and you can make a style sheet that completely is removed from the page itself. It's done all on the outside, and that's called an external style sheet. That is really the preferred way, and I'm going to see if I can type and talk at the same time, the preferred way to do CSS styling on a website, because what happens here, you put all these specifications that you want in a separate document. If you have like 20 or 30 web pages on your site, instead of having to manually change each of those 20 or 30 pages individually, you can change it on this style sheet. And once you associate this style sheet with a particular website of 20 or 30 pages, you make the change in the style sheet, and it will make all the changes sweepingly at one time much faster. And with businesses and industries and schools having large complex websites, this is much faster, because having to change these pages individually would simply be too time consuming. And you may say, well, why didn't I show you this earlier? Because I wanted to show you the basics, as virtually all textbooks do. They'll show you the basics first for individual parts of a page, and then show you the style sheet itself that's external. Page 238, if you want to do a style sheet, you'll do one of those rare moments I say not to do, and do File New, choose CSS, and no, your document did not disappear. It's just a new tab in Expression Web. I can click Gasden, and there it is. I'm just going to the one that says Untitled, and I'm going to go ahead and save it now by right-clicking. Even though it says save, it will give me an option to save it. And if you've got this inside a folder, you want to make sure that your web page and your style sheet are in the same folder. You have to be very, very careful about that. Be sure that the style sheet that we're about to make, and it's called Gasden Styles New.css, be sure that it's in the same exact folder as the web page itself, and be sure that it ends with the letter CSS. I've had students in past years to misspell it, and that makes it not work. So I'll save that. And basically what you do here with this outside style sheet, you simply click on New Style, same way you normally do. And I'm just going to pick one just in the interest of time. You can do this on your own. I'm going to pick the word body, which is just the body of the text. And I'm going to choose for body. Again, this is not part of the assignment, but just to give you an idea. Let's say I want Arial font. And let's say I want the color for some wild, crazy reason to be, I didn't mean to pick that. Let's say I want it to be red. That's a very bad color to use, but I'm going to use it just for emphasis purposes. And I'll click OK. Now, the definition for the body of my document is right there, but it hasn't changed the style sheet at all. What I have to do is I have to apply that to the existing style sheet. I'm going to go back and modify this just to let you see it. What I should have done is where it says body, I should choose an option, and in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and delete it temporarily and go back and recreate this. Pardon me for this oversight. I at least have named the sheet. I'll go back and do the new style again, and I'm going to choose body. You can choose anything you like. The book will tell you specific directions on 238, 239. And what you want to do here, instead of applying it at the current page, you want to do something called existing style sheet, because I want all these changes I make, in this case my first one ever, to be in the existing style sheet called Gasden Style New, and that's what I want to use. So I'm going to choose that. I chose body, define an existing style sheet, and I'll do what the book says this time. The font family they're choosing is Arial, and they've actually chosen a color here. I'll choose navy. I think that's navy. There's navy right there. And again, when I click OK, it's defined right there in its own separate document, but it doesn't affect this sheet. What I have to do is sort of marry them to each other, make them unite. And to attach that, they call it attaching it. To attach that style sheet to it, I can do this one of two ways. The book, I think, may tell you only one way. You can attach it by either, if you're looking at this list right here, you can actually drag the name. If it's in the same folder, you can actually drag the style sheet into the document, and it will make the changes. That's one of the easier ways to do it. Or you can choose the option that says Attach Style Sheet, and you choose the name for it, and that will attach it for you. So basically what you're saying here is you are taking this external style and attaching it to the sheet. And you can do this to as many web pages within the site as you wanted to. The way you see this in the code, if I split it up, at the very top of the page you will see a statement that says link that's been put into the code. Line 30 in my case, it says link the Gasden Styles new sheet to this document. So it's done completely on the outside. Hopefully this will give you some ideas as to how this stuff will work. And if I ever wanted to remove this, if I just have made a disaster of this, I can actually go in. If I want to remove it, I can right click the style sheet itself, and it's down here. I can actually right click on it and I can choose something called remove link, and that will take that style away from the sheet. Hopefully this gives you a good running start to doing this particular tutorial, and if you have additional questions or specificities, concerns, just let me know.